Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Terra's Hope, watching two alien fleets face each other across the dark void of space. For 3 days, the crystalline Zephyrians and the gaseous Nathali had been locked in a heated argument over mining rights to an asteroid field. Both sides claimed ownership. Both sides were ready to fight. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. He had been dealing with conflicts like this for 15 years, ever since humans joined the Galactic Coalition. It was always the same pattern. Two species would get angry at each other. They would threaten war. Then someone would call for the humans. "Captain, the Zephyrian commander is demanding we choose a side," said Amy Fletcher from her position at the communications console. Her voice carried the exhaustion they all felt after days of careful negotiations. "Tell him we don't choose sides," Jake replied calmly. "We find solutions." Dr. Lisa Grant looked up from her research station. I found something that might help. The asteroid field was formed from debris of an ancient Corvally trading post. According to galactic law, that makes it neutral territory." Jake smiled. Lisa always found the answers hidden in old records and forgotten laws. It was what made humans so good at this job. They saw connections that other species missed. "Amy, set up a 3-way communication channel. Let's share the good news." Within an hour, both fleets were backing down. The Zephyrians and Nathali agreed to joint mining operations, splitting the profits equally. Another conflict ended without a single shot fired. Jake made a note in his log. Peaceful resolution number 847. Back on Earth, General Paul Richards read the report with satisfaction. Humans had been keeping peace in the galaxy for almost a century. They were known as the mediator species, the ones who could talk anyone out of fighting. It made him proud. "Another day, another war prevented," he said to his aide. "Sometimes I wonder what the galaxy did before we came along." His aide, a young officer named Ryan Stone, nodded. "The history books say there were a lot more wars, sir. A lot more destruction." Paul smiled. It felt good to be needed, to be the species that brought peace wherever they went. The galaxy respected humans not for their weapons or their strength, but for their ability to understand all sides of any problem. But not everyone in the galaxy was happy about human success. In the dark reaches of Kethmoran space, War Prime, Vexthul studied reports of human activities with growing anger. The massive alien, his 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws, crushed the datapad in frustration. "Every conflict they stop is profit we lose," he growled to his officers. "Every war they prevent is territory we cannot claim." The Kethmoran Empire had grown powerful by selling weapons and mercenary services to warring species. When others fought, the Kethmoran prospered. But humans had been ruining their business for decades. "The galaxy fears war because of these humans," Vexthul continued. "They have made peace fashionable. This cannot continue." His intelligence officer, a smaller Kethmoran with cybernetic implants, stepped forward. "War Prime, we have been monitoring human communication networks. They are planning a major peace summit at Kepler Station." Vexthul's eyes gleamed with malicious intent. "How many humans will attend?" "According to our sources, 17 ships, nearly 8,000 of their diplomats and peacekeepers." A cruel smile spread across Vexthul's face. "Perfect. If we remove their best peacekeepers, the galaxy will remember why war is inevitable." 3 weeks later, Jake received orders that filled him with excitement. A massive peace summit was being organized at Kepler Station, the largest neutral meeting ground in the galaxy. Representatives from over 40 species would attend to discuss a new treaty for interstellar cooperation. "This could be the biggest breakthrough in decades," Lisa said as she packed her research materials. "If we can get this many species to agree on basic cooperation principles, we might prevent conflicts for generations." Jake's wife, Commander Susan Morrison, would be leading a separate diplomatic team from Earth. They rarely got to work the same missions anymore, both being too valuable to risk together. But this summit was too important. Every experienced human diplomat was needed. "I'll see you at Kepler Station," Susan said as she prepared to board her own ship. "The Dawn's promise. Try not to solve all the galaxy's problems before I get there." Jake kissed her goodbye, not knowing it would be the last time he would ever see her alive. The 17 human ships arrived at Kepler Station over 2 days. The massive space station, built into a hollowed-out asteroid, could house over 50,000 beings. It was a marvel of cooperative engineering built by 12 different species working together. It represented everything humans believed about the power of cooperation. Jake walked through the station's corridors, marveling at the diversity of life around him. Tall insect-like Mentari delegates chatted with short, furry Altarians. Gaseous Netali floated alongside crystalline Zephyrians. Dozens of species that had once been enemies now worked together toward common goals. Beautiful, isn't it? Susan said, appearing beside him in the main concourse. This is what we've helped build, a place where everyone can meet as equals. Jake nodded, feeling proud of humanity's role in creating this peaceful gathering. Tomorrow, the formal sessions would begin. Today, delegates mingled freely, sharing meals and ideas. But in the shadows of the station, Kethmaran infiltrators moved carefully. They had been preparing for months, using stolen human diplomatic codes to gain access. Small bombs were placed in critical locations. The timing had to be perfect. The next morning, as Jake prepared for the opening ceremony, Amy Fletcher burst into his quarters with panic in her eyes. "Captain, I'm picking up energy signatures that don't belong here. Someone has been placing explosive devices throughout the station." Jake's blood went cold. "How many?" "At least 50, sir. They're small but powerful. If they all go off at once." Station-wide alarm began blaring before Amy could finish her sentence. Emergency broadcasts flooded all communication channels. The peaceful summit had become a trap. Jake ran toward the command center, trying to reach Susan's location. Around him, panic spread as delegates realized what was happening. But there was nowhere to run. The nearest ships were docked to the station, and evacuation would take hours they didn't have. The first explosion rocked the station's lower levels. Then another. Then dozens more in rapid succession. The carefully placed bombs tore through Kepler Station's structure like tissue, paper. Jake watched in horror as sections of the station broke apart and drifted into space. Emergency force fields struggled to contain the atmosphere, but they were failing fast. Through the chaos, he heard Amy's voice on his communicator. "Captain, I'm detecting Kethmaran ships decloaking around the station. They're broadcasting something to the entire galaxy." On screens throughout the dying station, Vexthal's face appeared. His message was simple and brutal. "The galaxy has grown weak under human influence. Today we cleanse the universe of those who spread the disease of peace. Consider this pest control." Jake fought his way through collapsing corridors, desperate to reach Susan's section. But when he arrived, he found only twisted metal and empty space. The Dawn's Promise and 12 other human ships had been completely destroyed. Amy Fletcher died in his arms, using her last breath to transmit proof of Kethmaran guilt to Earth. As the station's final sections broke apart, Jake and the few other survivors were rescued by ships that arrived too late to matter. Of the 8,000 humans who came to Kepler Station seeking peace, fewer than 200 survived. When the news reached Earth, something fundamental changed in the human spirit. The species that had spent a century teaching the galaxy about mercy suddenly remembered older lessons about justice. The age of human peacemaking was over. The age of human reckoning had begun. 3 months after Kepler Station, Earth was a different world. The planet that had once celebrated each peaceful resolution now burned with quiet fury. Memorial services were held daily, but they were not the gentle remembrances of the past. These gatherings had a harder edge, filled with voices calling for justice. Admiral Kate Logan stood before the Earth Defense Council, her uniform crisp and her expression cold. She had been promoted after the previous leadership was blamed for being too soft, too trusting. The galaxy expected humans to continue their peacekeeping role, but Kate had other plans. "Members of the Council," she began, her voice steady, "we have spent 100 years teaching the galaxy that every problem can be solved with words. We believed that mercy was strength. We were wrong." The room fell silent. These were words no human leader had spoken in living memory. Today I am implementing Protocol Omega, Kate continued. For those unfamiliar with this doctrine, it was created during our early space exploration years. It outlines what our military called the old ways. Dr. Marcus Webb, the Earth's leading military historian, stepped forward with a thick folder. His research had consumed him since Kepler Station, diving deep into humanity's violent past. Admiral Logan asked me to study our history before we became peacekeepers, Webb said, his voice carrying new authority. What I found was disturbing. We did not become the galaxy's mediators because we were naturally peaceful. We became mediators because we understood violence so completely that we chose to reject it. He opened his folder, revealing charts and data that painted a grim picture. Humanity spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war before we learned peace. We created weapons designed not just to kill, but to break the spirit of our enemies. We developed tactics that used fear as effectively as bullets. We understood suffering in ways that made us exceptional at preventing it. Webb's eyes hardened as he continued. But that understanding never left us. It has been sleeping, waiting. The Kethmoran have awakened something they do not comprehend. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the front row, his face bearing new scars from Kepler Station. The cheerful diplomat was gone, replaced by something darker. When Admiral Logan called his name, he stood slowly. Captain Morrison, you have been selected to lead a new type of human unit. Not diplomats, not peacekeepers, hunters. Jake nodded without emotion. What are my orders, Admiral? Find the Kethmoran. Remind them why they should have left us alone. Across the galaxy, the Kethmoran Empire celebrated their victory. War Prime Vexthul had become a hero among his people. The destruction of Kepler Station was being called the greatest military achievement in recent history. The humans were weak, Vexthul declared to his commanders. They talked of peace while we prepared for war. They trusted while we planned. This is why the strong rule and the weak serve. Encouraged by their success, the Kethmoran began expanding their operations. They targeted a convoy of Altarian refugees fleeing a dying star system. The peaceful, furry aliens had no weapons, no defenses. They were perfect victims. The Kethmoran warships surrounded the refugee convoy in deep space, far from any help. Vexthul himself led the attack, wanting to personally oversee what he called another cleansing operation. Attention, weak creatures. His voice boomed across communication channels. You carry the disease of pacifism. We will cure you of this sickness. The Altarian refugees huddled in their transport ships, parents holding their children close. They sent desperate messages into space, hoping someone would hear their final words. Someone did hear. A single human vessel dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the battle zone. It was a ship none of the refugees recognized, painted in colors that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The name on its hull read Retribution. Kethmoran vessels. Came a cold human voice over the communications channel. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. You will release the refugees and surrender immediately. Vexthul laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The famous human peacekeeper. Have you come to negotiate with us? To find a peaceful solution? No, Jake replied simply. I have come to give you one chance to live. The Kethmoran commander's laughter grew louder. One small human ship against my entire fleet? Your species truly has lost its mind. We found our mind, Jake said. We just remembered what we used to do with it. What happened next shocked both the Kethmoran and the Altarian refugees. The human ship did not attempt to negotiate or call for backup. Instead, Jake Morrison began systematically destroying the Kethmoran fleet. The Retribution moved like nothing the galaxy had seen from humans before. It used tactics that were efficient and brutal. Jake did not try to disable enemy ships or minimize casualties. He targeted command centers, life support systems, and escape pods with equal precision. In less than 4 minutes, 12 Kethmoran warships were reduced to drifting wreckage. Vexthul's flagship was the last to die, its hull cracked open like an egg to expose its crew to the vacuum of space. The Altarian refugees watched in stunned silence as Jake's ship positioned itself near their convoy. They expected the human to explain his actions, to apologize for the violence, to return to the peaceful ways they remembered. Instead, Jake broadcast a message that would be heard across the galaxy. This is Captain Morrison of the human ship. Retribution. Let this be a lesson to all who would prey on the innocent. We tried mercy. We tried understanding. We tried peace. You mistook these things for weakness. His voice grew colder with each word. We are not weak. We are not helpless. We are not your victims. We remember what we were before we chose to be better. Cross us again, and we will show you why your ancestors were right to fear the dark. The message spread through galactic networks. Within hours, species that had grown comfortable with human protection suddenly realized they had never truly known their protectors. The gentle mediators who had prevented wars for a century had revealed themselves as something far more dangerous. On year, Earth Admiral Logan watched the battle recordings with mixed feelings. The tactical efficiency was impressive, but the brutality was troubling. They had unleashed something that might be difficult to control. Admiral, Dr. Webb said, reviewing the data. Captain Morrison's actions were effective, but they represent a fundamental shift in human behavior. We are no longer the species we were. Kate nodded grimly. The question is whether we can be the species we need to be. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison stood alone on his ship's bridge, staring at the wreckage he had created. He felt no satisfaction, no joy in victory. He felt only the cold certainty that this was just the beginning. His communication officer, Lieutenant Eva Martinez, approached carefully. Captain, we're receiving thousands of messages from across the galaxy. Some are thanking us for saving the refugees. Others are expressing fear of what humans might do next. Jake turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that made her step back. The man who had once spent hours negotiating peaceful solutions had become something else entirely. Good, he said quietly. Fear keeps people honest. Maybe if they had feared us before, 8,000 humans would still be alive. The Retribution turned toward Kethamoran space, its hull dark against the stars. Behind it, the Altarian refugees continued their journey to safety, but they would never forget what they had witnessed. The galaxy's understanding of humanity had changed forever. The age of human mercy was ending. The age of human justice had begun. 6 months after Kepler Station, the galaxy had learned to fear a new sound. It was the quiet hum of human engines dropping out of hyperspace. Where once that sound had meant peace talks and fair solutions, now it meant something far different. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, studying star charts of Kethmoran territory. Red marks showed the locations of destroyed enemy bases, fleets, and colonies. There were many red marks now. Sir, we've located another Kethmoran supply depot, reported Commander Alex Price, Morrison's second-in-command. The younger officer had volunteered for the mission after losing his brother at Kepler Station. Intelligence suggests they're storing weapons meant for sale to other aggressive species. Jake nodded slowly. Any civilians? The depot is military only, sir. Standard Kethmoran garrison of about 300 soldiers. Good. Dr. Young, are you ready with the new approach? Doctor. Beth Young looked up from her psychological warfare station. She had been developing what she called empathy weapons, tactics that used humanity's deep understanding of fear and pain to break enemy morale before the shooting even started. Yes, Captain. I've prepared a broadcast that should make them understand exactly what they're facing. The Retribution approached the Kethmoran depot slowly, making no attempt to hide. Jake wanted them to see death coming. It was part of the new human strategy that had spread terror throughout enemy space. Open a channel to the depot, Jake ordered. The main screen showed a Kethmoran commander, his forearms spread in what his species considered a threatening display. Human vessel, you have entered Kethmoran space illegally. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Commander, I am Captain Morrison. You may have heard of me. The Kethmoran's confident expression faltered. Every military officer in the galaxy now knew that name. I want you to look at your tactical display, Jake continued calmly. Notice that I approached your depot alone. with no backup, no support fleet. Do you know why I did that? The Kethmoran commander checked his sensors, confusion replacing his earlier aggression. This must be a trap. No trap, Jake replied. I came alone because I don't need help to destroy you. Your weapons cannot penetrate my shields. Your ships cannot match my speed. Your soldiers cannot escape my weapons. In approximately 4 minutes, every living thing in your depot will be dead, and I will continue to the next target. Dr. Young's broadcast began, filling the communication channel with carefully selected images and sounds, video of previous human attacks, recordings of Kethmoran soldiers begging for mercy before their bases were destroyed, tactical analysis showing the complete helplessness of Kethmoran forces against human technology. However, Jake continued, as the psychological attack played, I am prepared to offer you something your commanders at Kepler Station never offered my people. A choice. The Kethmoran commander was now visibly shaking. What? What kind of choice? Surrender your weapons and abandon this depot within 2 minutes. Take only personal items. Leave everything else. Do this, and you will live to see another day. And if we refuse? Jake's expression never changed. Then you will join the 3,000 other Kethmoran soldiers who thought they could fight humans and win. Check your military databases. See how many of your people have survived encounters with human forces in the past 6 months. The Kethmoran commander's fingers moved frantically over his control panel. What he found there drained the color from his face. 0 survivors. In every engagement with human forces since Kepler Station, no Kethmoran had lived to report what they had experienced. 90 seconds, Jake announced. The depot began evacuating immediately. Kethmoran soldiers ran for their transport ships, abandoning weapons, supplies, and equipment worth millions of credits. They had heard the stories whispered in their military bases. Humans no longer took prisoners. They no longer showed mercy. They no longer cared about being seen as the good ones. The evacuation took exactly 1 minute and 47 seconds. As the last Kethmoran transport cleared the depot, Jake gave a simple order. Destroy it. The depot vanished in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. But Jake did not stop there. He followed the fleeing transports to their home base and repeated his offer. Surrender and live or stay and die. Word of human tactics spread faster than their ships could travel. Entire Kethmoran colonies evacuated at the first sign of human vessels in their systems. The species that had once prided itself on military strength now ran from fights they knew they could not win. Meanwhile, on the coalition capital world, other species watched humanity's transformation with growing alarm. Ambassador Zelthari of the Centauri Republic requested an emergency meeting with Admiral Logan. Admiral, the tall, blue-skinned diplomat said, his voice filled with concern, we need to discuss what your people have become. You're no longer the species we knew. Kate Logan sat across from him in her office, her expression hard. We're exactly the same species we always were. We just stopped pretending otherwise. The humans we knew would never have destroyed entire military installations without attempting negotiation first. The humans you knew were murdered at Kepler Station, Kate replied coldly. What you see now is what we were before we learned to trust others. Be grateful we still remember who our friends are. Zelthari leaned forward desperately. But surely you understand that this path leads nowhere good. Violence only creates more violence. You taught us that. Kate stood and walked to her window, looking out at Earth's blue sky. Violence taught us that lesson too. Do you know how many wars were fought on this planet before we learned peace? Thousands. Do you know what finally ended them? The ambassador shook his head. The absolute certainty that the cost of war was too high to pay. Every species on Earth learned that the hard way. Now the galaxy gets the same education. Back in Kethmoran space, War Prime Vexthal watched his empire crumble. Half his colonies had been abandoned. His military bases were being destroyed faster than they could be defended. And at the center of it all was one human who seemed to know exactly where to strike. How does he find us so easily? Vexthal demanded of his intelligence officers. Sir, we believe the humans have infiltrated our communication networks. Every order we give, every movement we make, they seem to know about it immediately. Vexthol's claws scraped against his command chair. The human Morrison was not just destroying Kethmoran forces. He was hunting them, using tactics that turned every strength into a weakness. What about our allies? The Drakmori Syndicate? The Void Hunters? His aide looked nervous. Sir, they have withdrawn their support. They say that helping us fight humans is suicide. For the first time since Kepler Station, Vexthol felt real fear. He had awakened something that he did not understand, something that fought wars in ways his species had never imagined. Contact the human Morrison, he ordered. Tell him I wish to negotiate. Sir? Do it. Tell him War Prime Vexthol requests a meeting. Tell him we are prepared to discuss terms. The message was sent and the reply came back within hours. Morrison would meet with Vexthol on the neutral world of Sigma Draconis, but not for negotiations. Single combat, the message read. Winner takes all. No weapons except what nature gave us. If you win, humans will withdraw from Kethmoran space. If I win, your empire surrenders unconditionally. Vexthol laughed when he read the terms. He was twice the size of any human, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. His species was bred for physical combat. This Morrison must have lost his mind. Accept his challenge, Vexthol ordered. Broadcast it across the galaxy. Let everyone see what happens when a small human tries to fight a true warrior. The meeting was set for 1 week later. As news of the challenge spread, beings throughout the galaxy made plans to watch. Many expected to see the human Morrison torn apart, bringing an end to the terror that had gripped the galaxy. They had no idea what they were about to witness. 2 years after Kepler Station, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy peace. The Kethmoran Empire no longer existed, wiped from star charts and history books alike. Their worlds were empty now, abandoned after what scholars called the Great Reckoning. President Sam Mitchell stood before the Galactic Council, representing a humanity that no longer asked for permission to act. The cheerful diplomats of the past had been replaced by something harder, colder, but undeniably effective. Members of the council, Sam began, his voice carrying quiet authority. We gather today to discuss the new reality of galactic peace. The assembled aliens shifted uncomfortably. These were species that had once looked to humans as gentle guides. Now they looked to humans as something else entirely. You taught us that mercy was our greatest strength, Sam continued. Then you stood by while we were slaughtered for that mercy. We learned that strength without the will to use it is just weakness waiting to be exploited. Ambassador Zelthari of the Centauri Republic raised a trembling hand. President Mitchell, surely we can return to the old ways. The galaxy needs peacemakers, not enforcers. Sam's expression never changed. The galaxy has peace, more peace than it has known in centuries. The difference is that now everyone understands the cost of breaking it. Dr. Tim Clark, Earth's leading expert on alien psychology, had spent months studying how different species adapted to humanity's transformation. His research painted a clear picture of the new galactic order. Some species, like the gentle Altarians, welcomed human protection. They saw humans as guardian angels who ensured their safety. Others, like the proud Draconian Empire, resented human interference, but lacked the power to resist it. The data is clear, Dr. Clark reported to the Council. Galactic conflict has decreased by 94% since humans began their enforcement policies. Piracy is down by 98%. Trade disputes are resolved faster than ever before. But at what cost? Demanded the Draconian representative. You have become the very thing you once protected us from. Captain Julie Barnes, representing the new generation of human officers, stood to respond. She had been born after Kepler Station, raised in a world where peace came with teeth. The cost, she said simply, is that everyone thinks twice before starting a war. Is that such a terrible thing? Julie commanded the vessel Final Warning, a ship that embodied humanity's new approach to diplomacy. When conflicts arose, she would arrive with an offer of mediation. But unlike the old human peacekeepers, she made the consequences of refusal very clear. Just last month, The Corvani Republic had attempted to claim territory belonging to the peaceful Theta Centauri colonies. Julie had arrived with a simple message: negotiate fairly or face the consequences. The Corvani commander had laughed at her youth, calling her a child playing at war. Julie's response had become legendary throughout the galaxy. She destroyed 3 Corvani warships in 30 seconds, then repeated her offer to negotiate. The talks concluded within an hour. This is the Pax Humana, Dr. Clark explained to the council. Peace maintained not through gentle words, but through the absolute certainty that aggression has consequences too terrible to risk. On Earth, Jake Morrison tended a small garden behind his house. The man who had become the galaxy's most feared enforcer now spent his days growing flowers and vegetables. It was a strange sight that confused many who knew his reputation, but Jake understood the symbolism. Even in his darkest moments, he maintained a connection to life and growth. It reminded him that destruction was not the goal. Peace was the goal. Destruction was simply the tool they had been forced to use. His peaceful retirement was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Logan. A new species called the Corvani had emerged from unexplored space, establishing themselves through military conquest. They had studied the fall of the Kethmaran Empire and believed they could succeed where others had failed. Their first target was a human research station on the edge of known space. Not because the station was strategically important, but because they wanted to send a message. They wanted to test whether humans had grown soft again. Jake read the report while sitting among his tomato plants. 53 humans killed. Researchers who had been studying ways to help other species develop better agriculture. People who had never hurt anyone. The attack was not about territory or resources. It was an insult, carefully calculated to provoke. A response. Jake stood slowly, brushing dirt from his hands. Some lessons, he realized, needed to be taught more than once. Computer, he said to his home system, activate the retribution. Set course for Corvani space. Sir, the artificial intelligence replied, the retribution has been in storage for 18 months. Are you certain you wish to reactivate it? Jake looked at his garden one more time. The flowers he had planted were beginning to bloom. Life continued, but only because those who threatened it were stopped. Yes, he said quietly. Reactivate all systems. News of the human research station attack spread quickly through galactic networks. Most species held their breath, wondering what would happen next. The Corvani, confident in their military superiority, broadcast their intentions to expand further into human space. Their leader, Supreme Commander Vashitar, appeared on communication channels throughout the galaxy. The humans have grown weak during their years of peace, he declared. We will remind the galaxy that strength comes from conquest, not negotiation. The response came not from Earth's government or the human military command. It came from a single ship dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of Corvani territory. The retribution had returned. Jake's message was broadcast on all frequencies, simple and direct. Supreme Commander Vashitar, this is Captain Morrison. You have made a mistake. The Corvani leader's response was filled with arrogant laughter. The famous human peacekeeper, have you come to negotiate with us? To find another peaceful solution? No, Jake replied, his voice carrying the weight of 2 years of enforced peace. I have come to remind the galaxy why some species choose cooperation over conquest. What followed was not a battle. It was an education. Jake did not simply destroy Corvani ships. He systematically dismantled their entire military structure, broadcasting each engagement across the galaxy. The beings who watched saw something that chilled them to their cores. Humans had not grown soft. They had simply been patient. The Corvani Empire lasted 6 days against a single human ship. Their fleets were shattered, their bases reduced to debris, their colonies abandoned. But Jake did not stop there. He appeared on every communication channel in Corvani space with a final message. To all species watching this, he said, standing on the bridge of the retribution, understand this, clearly. Peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is the presence of justice. We offer cooperation to those who choose it. We guarantee destruction to those who threaten it. The transmission ended with the Retribution jumping back to human space, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and a lesson that would be remembered for generations. On Earth, President Mitchell addressed the planet in a speech that defined humanity's place in the galaxy. "We are no longer the species that asks permission to defend the innocent," he said. "We are the species that ensures the innocent never need defending. This is our gift to the galaxy. This is our promise to those who would break the peace. Choose wisely." The message was received and understood throughout known space. Humanity had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that enforced peace through the absolute certainty of overwhelming retaliation. Some called them protectors. Others called them predators. But everyone called them when trouble started. The galaxy was at peace, and everyone knew exactly why.